In partnership with Singing Hills Memorial Park, welcome to Journey Home Radio, discussing the most important topics around life's most sacred goodbye. This is Journey Home Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Journey Home Radio, where farewell meets forever. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach us at singinghillsmemorialpark.com or give us a call at 619-444-3000. I'm your host, Thesa.
And I'm your host, Iris. And today is a part 2 of our Death Doula segment. We are here joined with Penny and Kara. And I'm going to go ahead and let Kara open up. And she's going to talk a little bit about her background and how she became a Death Doula.
Yeah, thank you. So I am actually coming from a long career as a public educator. And I recently made the switch into death care. As a doula for both people and for their pets. And I do a lot of death education now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kara, what are some of the first steps families can take to start preparing for an end of life, or, you know, emotionally, practically? What would you say is the best starting point?
A couple different things. One would just to start reflecting on kind of like what your values are and what are the things that you want for your own self, and kind of bring those things up to your family, because it can be kind of uncomfortable to talk about things like disposition options and, some of those higher level things that sometimes people don't want to discuss. And so just finding out what's important to you, bringing it up to your family, and that kind of can open the door for your family to possibly bring those things up to you about what they want.
And Kara, you mentioned that you're a death doula for pets also. How would one reach out to you regarding that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. You can visit the Death Network website. All of my information is on there. And from there, you can just email me. You can even text me. And we can set up a time. I work with clients virtually and in their home here in San Diego. And yeah, we could do like a consultation and figure out what kind of the best options are. I'm working pretty closely with a local aquamation facility. So there's lots of options for pets that people don't necessarily think about.
And this question is for Penny. How can families begin having those difficult conversations when it's urgent?
Yeah, I actually just experienced this with a member of my own family who refused to talk about any sort of planning or what should come after they died. And it really shifted my perspective and how I can coach people through that. And what it allowed me to do was look at it through a different lens. Mm-hmm. When we don't have these conversations, when we don't make our wishes known verbally or in a written format, we're leaving those decisions to those who survive us. And if they don't know what was important to us, how are they able to navigate not only grieving the loss of somebody, but now they're having to make these rapid, quick, fast, very important decisions, and they don't have anything to base their decisions on. Mm-hmm. And another thing I think a lot of people don't recognize is that, like, in my case, it was a parent who died, and I have 3 siblings. Mm-hmm. We all have to agree on what that disposition looks like. And fortunately, we were all aligned, but I'm also, along with being a death doula, I'm also a funeral arranger, and I have met with many, many, many families where we're at the table and there's conflict because somebody might want something that somebody else doesn't. And so by looking at it through the lens of, if I tell my friends and family what I want my end of life to look like and what I want my disposition to be, you're leaving them a gift, right?
Absolutely.
They don't have to make any of those decisions, and they're able to step in and grieve and not be burdened down with these decisions that have to be made quickly. Yeah,
I think Thesa and myself, we see that all the time. I recently had a family walk in, and mom passed about almost 30 years ago, and dad had bought the plot next to her, but they never made any decisions on the memorial markers, so it's been an unmarked grave for the past 30 years. And the daughter came in and she expressed, it was just too hard for dad to make that decision, and now here we are. And I had to have that conversation with the family, like, well, do you think dad would want a traditional burial, or you think he'd be okay with cremation? And they never had that conversation with him. So it's very important that we start those conversations. Kara, how do you help people who might not have strong family support and who are facing this process alone?
Yeah, so it's more common nowadays than it used to be. We live in a pretty hyper individualistic society where often we don't live near our family. So there are a lot of aging people who don't have people around. And so we can come in and do the things that people just really need. It's some of the small things, it's big things. It can be paperwork, it can be helping you call the funeral home, it can be helping you. It can be pretty much anything. So, sometimes people feel like they're a burden. And especially when they don't have family, it's hard to ask your neighbors or strangers,
right,
or you have to hire somebody. So that's a gap that we absolutely fill.
Penny, what are some ways families can honor their loved ones' wishes and make the experience more meaningful?
That's a really great question, Iris. So what we have found in our modern culture is most people assume that when somebody dies, they have to be taken into the care of a funeral home immediately. And that's just not the case. And so when we're working with somebody, we really like to advocate for, I like to call it the pause. So after they die, whether it's in a hospital or a nursing home or at home, there is time after they die. There's no need to rush and make that call to get them into the care of a funeral home. And during that time, it can be a little memorial. It can be maybe a little bit of a ritual washing or combing of the hair or dressing their loved one in a favorite outfit. Just to pause and slow down and let our hearts and our minds and our bodies accept that this person who was dying is now dead. So instead of this rush to get them out and into the care of the professionals, we really need to just honor that moment. And that can be anywhere from it can be simple, a half an hour even, or it can be a few hours, but just to take that moment. And it's so mind-blowing that most people don't know they can do that.
Right.
People think, and sometimes they're told, oh, we, especially if it's in the hospital, okay, we have to move this quickly. And that's just not the case. I will also say it's good to have those conversations. If somebody is in a facility, have those conversations with their care team and let them know your plans. Hey, we want to spend an hour with her after she passes so that we can care for her and have a little memorial. And then we'll call for transportation. And most places are totally fine with that if they know your plan. But I just like to let people know they have the permission to do that. There is no rush to get your person into the funeral home.
Could you share maybe an example of how your work has brought peace and closure to a family?
Yeah, we had a really hard but very special case a little bit ago that it was a very tragic accident. It happened immediately, and so there was an urgency there to get support for the family. And so I think the call came through on a Friday night, and I was unavailable that weekend, but because our collective is so focused on providing care for people that is obviously it needs to be timely and it needs to be compassionate and all those things, but we all have our busy lives and our schedules too. So being part of this collective, it was really this beautiful moment where Saturday morning there was a text that I sent out, and immediately everybody said, I have time here, I have time there, I can help here, I can help there. And so it was actually Kara and I and Tara who stepped in to guide this family through things that happened very, very quickly. So we were able to be there with them during the transition. And then also we were able to help them make their funeral arrangements because we are connected with some funeral homes. And so we had that conversation and we were able to help them make those arrangements. And then we were able to secure an officiant and help them coordinate their memorial that was in a public space. And so being able to hand a family to hands that we know and trust is so important. And we all knew the importance of coming together for this family in this very, very tragic moment. And that's what drives us, right? That's why we do this work, so that we can show up. And sometimes we're not there 100% of the time, but we know that the people that are showing up in our absence are people that we trust. And so it really turned into this really beautiful flow. There was a flow to it because we didn't have to say, okay, now go talk to this funeral home. Okay, now you need to go find an officiant. Now
it's not rushed.
Right. And we were able just to take all of that off of their plate through our teamwork. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really it turned out to be a beautiful moment.
And for those of you who are just tuning in, this is Journey Home Radio. I'm your host, Iris Wise. If at any time you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at singinghillsmemorialpark.com, or you can give us a call at 619-444-3000.
Thank you, Iris. And in our last episode, we had talked a little bit about home funerals. Penny was talking about that instead of going to the funeral home and having a viewing, families can say goodbye to their loved one in their own home. And Penny, can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, actually, Tessa. So in the state of California, there is no law that says you have to have your person removed from your home or the hospital within a certain amount of time. So I'm going to use the home as a reference here. So if somebody dies at home, you do not have to immediately call the funeral home and have them taken out of your house. There is no time limit in California. I'm not advocating for a huge timeline or anything here, but that day or even a day or two, we are able to care for the person in a way that helps to delay the decomposition so that the family can gather at home and honor them in this cozy, known space, right? The other thing that a lot of people don't know is that a home funeral is legal in every state in the United States. The rules will vary by county and by state, not by county. The rules will vary. But in California, you don't have to hire a funeral director if you're having a home funeral. It can be led by a family member, a friend, or we often lead those because we're also there caring for the person. So what it does is it just, instead of drawing out a schedule for visitation, for all the things that happen when we plan a funeral, the way that we are familiar with planning a funeral, usually it's somebody dies and then it might be, 3, 4, 5 days, 2 weeks before there's a visitation or anything like that. And that kind of tells our grief to pause, right?
Yes.
Right. So this home funeral, it's small, it's intimate. It's a time for friends and family to just show up. Most often they're wearing, whatever they wore to work that day, or maybe they came from the gym, and that's okay because death doesn't demand that we all show up wearing black, right? Death just wants us to show up and be there and be present. So they turn into really beautiful little authentic little home crafted ceremonies, DIY funerals where people are just walking in and bringing flowers and food and the music's playing and pictures are coming out. And it's just another way to honor somebody that's a little more casual and heartfelt than what you may find in a formal chapel in a funeral home setting.
Right. We actually, for my aunt that passed during COVID, because there was so many delays, we had a home funeral for her. And we worked with the mortuary, and they brought her casket. We cleared out our living room. We removed all the furniture. We put chairs in there. I had a priest that was a friend of mine from working at the mortuary, and he came and he did the service. But ultimately, we just did our own thing. And we didn't want to be restricted. And I think during COVID, it kind of did bring back these practices in a way, because I had already been in death care at that point for about 4 years, and I didn't know that was an option. So that was really eye-opening to me. So what you guys do and sharing that information and letting families know that that's an option is so powerful.
It is. I wanted to add too, I used to work for a funeral home, and this is the only option I knew, is when I worked for the funeral home, we would help with the transport. We would go pick up the loved one when the loved one passes and bring that loved one to the funeral home. And often when we went to the home, the family's standing outside, they're waiting for us to arrive, and we go into the home, and it almost feels like you're not even invited. You know, we're picking your loved one up and we're taking them away. And it almost always broke my heart, because they didn't really get to say goodbye. They called us right away. We're taking them. It was cold. So, you're introducing this funeral at home. It's has more peace about it.
I agree. I think a lot of people don't realize that when you do call the mortuary or the care center, whomever's going to be picking up your loved one, they always give a time frame of 2 hours. And during that time does not exist. Everything happens so quickly. And I always remind that with my families, everything's going to happen really quickly when we have our services. You're not going to have a sense of time. And I do kind of remember a story. One of my friends that worked at the care center, this family had lost their loved one, and they called this care center shortly after the person passed, and then they called back you know what, can we just have a few more hours? There's people coming in. And they delayed it for almost a whole day, which I think respectively was kind of better for them, because they were having a lot of people coming out of town to come say goodbye to this individual. So they needed that extra time. So it's very important for people to understand that there is no rush.
Right. There's also the concern too of some people feel like it's not safe to keep somebody home after they've died. And we just want to dispel that myth. It is completely safe to keep somebody home. There are ways to keep the body cool, and we can recognize the signs when we know that it's time to move them to the funeral home. Right. But a day or two is pretty easily accomplished and legal, and people just need to know that is an option. And with a little bit of planning, it can really turn into a beautiful moment for the family.
Kara, this question's for you. What advice would you give to someone who wants to explore becoming a death doula themselves?
Yeah, so I have a couple different things. So number one, we actually do a monthly Zoom for people who are interested in kind of exploring this path. And so you can come ask questions and just kind of connect with doulas. I think talking to death doulas is a good idea. Going to, say, a death cafe in your area. We have tons of things that we do here in San Diego for people to come and be able to ask questions and just explore their curiosity. But then also, if you go online, there are so many different courses that you can take. It can kind of be overwhelming. And so I would just go through and find the one that resonates with you. They're all kind of different. Some of them are a little bit more specialized. And so I would just take a course, and then you'll kind of have a better idea if it's something that you think is a fit for you.
I have a question. What do the courses look like? Are they about grief? Are they about mortuary science?
It's less mortuary science, given that what we do is all non-medical. And so there are definitely pieces on grief. There is a lot of education about, say, body care. Say somebody's at home, for those couple of days, how do you keep someone safe in a home for that long, for example? And then just the dying process. Some of it, there is definitely some overlap with kind of hospice terminology, excuse me. And it kind of just covers a wide range of experiences that one might come across in this field.
And I have another question. How can listeners find or connect with a certified death doula in their area?
Well, the internet's always going to be the go-to, right? So on our website, thedeathnetwork.com, we have, I think maybe 6 or 8 different death doulas here in San Diego. So I'll just direct people there. That's the easiest way to find one here in San Diego. Sometimes hospice organizations will recommend a doula. They won't recommend a doula by name or anything like that, but they'll recommend to their client that maybe they consider bringing a death doula on board. But if you come to thedeathnetwork.com and you're looking for somebody outside of our area, we are really well connected with the doula community across the United States, and we will help you find somebody in your state or county if it's outside of where we are.
Got it.
Yeah, our goal is to replicate what we're doing here and sprout up with some more collectives everywhere, because it's just such a necessity.
I have a question. Does insurance cover death doulas?
No, but I just got something in the mail the other day that birth doulas will be covered under Medicare going forward. Oh, okay. So that's a huge step in making this more accessible to everybody. But as it is right now, death doulas are private, self-employed for the most part. Yeah.
Kara, what do you wish people would understand about death and dying?
Yeah, so we talk a lot about how people really honor birth, right? Everybody comes together, it's a big celebration, and death is something that we're kind of averse to. And so a lot of people say, why would you celebrate a death? But it's just as sacred and just as special as a birth. And so it's the circle of life. We're all going to die, and it's inevitable, and a lot of people ignore it. And I'll think about that later. And so we just view it with a really intense reverence, just like one would do for a birth.
We get that a lot at Singing Hills. We'll talk about it later. We don't want to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
A lot of families, they come in, it's either one or the other, the husband or the wife. They don't want to talk about death, but and we offer the legacy planner so they could take it home and they could fill out, their wishes. And you have something like that to offer to your families as well?
Yeah. So there's a couple different things that we use.
Yeah, advanced directives are highly recommended. There's also a document called the POLST form, which goes into your medical record. But we are advocates of documenting and talking about and sharing these plans with your family and friends.
Penny, if you could leave our listeners with just one message about embracing the end of the life journey, what would it be?
I look at how we celebrate all these milestones throughout our life. There's graduations, birthdays, and holidays, and all these events that we plan for and put so much care into to make sure they are authentic and they reflect the experience and what's happening. And when it comes to death, I feel like we just put this wall up and we just think there doesn't need to be authenticity. There doesn't need to be uniqueness in how we celebrate and honor somebody so that it reflects them as a person. So I feel like we've kind of been siloed into a very transactional process when it comes to making funeral arrangements.
Yes.
It's A or B, it's pick your flowers out of a book, it's here's a caterer for you. And so crafting an end-of-life experience that authentically reflects who you are and how you lived should be as important as any other event that we plan for.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Penny, and thank you, Kara, for coming on to the show. And for those of you, this is Journey Home Radio. If you would like to reach us at singinghillsmemorialpark.com or give us a call at 619-444-3000. Just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and hope everybody has a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Journey Home Radio. We look forward to talking with you again next Saturday at noon right here on K-Praise.